I'd like to welcome everybody to our Media Day event as we start our 2016 season here. We have a number of media personnel in attendance today. We appreciate all of you being in attendance. And we have a real large number of new season ticket holders in attendance today. And really appreciate y'all's support and very, very happy to have you in attendance with us here today. We wrapped up camp here just recently, and at the end of camp, at the end of the last practice, I called the team up and I kind of made a few comments about, I don't know exactly how we got here, but we are here and we are where we need to be. It's been a very challenging camp. I think that for all of us in this business, it's been difficult dealing with the heat, the humidity. We've had a number of nagging injuries that kind of forced me to reassess and reevaluate our schedule throughout the course of camp. But as we were working through it, our guys remained very focused, very committed, and very much on point. Every day wasn't a good day. We had some real ups and downs, but I do feel that there were enough really good moments through the course of camp that allowed me to say at the end that we have arrived to this point and we are where we need to be. I think as the head coach, it's always my biggest job or focus is getting them ready to start the season. And though we have a model, we have a formula that we follow, there's got to be some moments where you're able to take a step back from that formula and say, I think it's in the best interest of our football team to maybe not practice tomorrow or to maybe change the schedule. So we did forfeit 2 practices during the course of camp. I certainly have no regrets about that. We were very focused in our walkthroughs and in our lifting sessions, in our meeting time. So I think we have arrived here at game week in a position to feel confident about our upcoming season. We have a real good group of core leaders in our program. You have the opportunity to hear from 6 of them here a little later today, as our captains will have an opportunity to communicate with the audience today and answer questions. But I had talked here for quite some time about a culture change. I've talked for quite some time about peer mentoring. Where we are in our program now, I think there's been enough continuity and the messages have been consistently clear, now going into my 5th year, that our students have a real good high expectation and understanding of what it is that is expected of them. So in some ways, I think our student athletes are doing a really good job of offering that leadership off of the direction of the coaches and off the direction of the head football coach. We have high expectations and high hopes for this upcoming season. We are certainly looking to take this one game at a time. And in saying that, we're very excited about the opportunity to go up to Charlottesville, Virginia, to compete against a very talented UVA team and against a really gifted coach in Coach Rocco Mendenhall. So we are highly motivated to put our work in here this week in preparation for the season. I do think that there are a couple of things that are very much up front in my mind about our team. And heading into the opener, I feel this game is not too big for our team. I think that a lot of times in these FCS, BCS games, there's a mentality that the game is too big. And our kids have been in some big games. Last year, our trip down to JMU, playing on ESPN Game Day, was a really big event. And our student athletes handled that very well. We made a run into the postseason last year, and obviously all those games are big games and big events. So I do think that this team has been somewhat battle-tested, and we're hoping to present our best product, when we head up to Charlottesville here on Saturday. Once again, it's an extremely competitive league. Our league has 6 plus or minus teams ranked in the top 25. And as I enter my 5th year in the league, I am even more and more confident that it's those teams that aren't quite recognized in that group that are the ones you kind of have to watch out for, because there's always a team that finds themselves playing the spoiler role or being a dark horse. My first season here, we were preseason 9, and we won the conference championship. Last year, we were preseason 5, and we won the auto bid into the FCS playoffs. So it's a very exciting, very challenging schedule, and we're certainly looking forward to those challenges. At this time, I'll take any questions from the media.
Fanny, campus for improving and staying healthy. How'd you do in the second part of that?
Well, we got off to a bad start, and that is one of the things that kind of forced me to rethink our schedule and our calendar a little bit. And oddly enough, the injuries were very position specific. If you kind of spread the number across the team, you probably would have been able to stay on schedule and continue with your model. But we had a number of defensive linemen out. We still have a handful of defensive linemen out. We had a number of linebackers out. So right from the get-go, I think on day one, we lost 2 or 3 of them. And we really, Coach Beelan had to, daily massage that lineup. And we all know the reality of camp. I mean, it's 100 plus, and it is hot, and it is humid. We're on the turf more times than not. I'm kind of assessing all the position groups as we're going through practice. And, if I'm noticing that one of the groups is really starting to fade, I've got to use some judgment in terms of making good decisions. Now, having said all that, I have been very clear with our team here the last few days that we're getting guys back. We're closer to being at or near full strength. And I definitely feel like we've got some real wind back in our sails here as we wrapped up camp and kind of got into some of our week 1 preparation 1 week in advance of the opening game.
How much do those injuries afford you the opportunity to give younger guys who would have to play in the event the injuries carry into the season an opportunity to get a lot more repetition?
It's an unbelievable follow-up right there, Hank, because it was very real. I said it to the team yesterday, because of those decisions we had to make, we found we got some young players that can play that we probably would not have really been able to make those decisions. And there's a handful of them on both sides of the ball that I do see contributing here this year. And they showed the ability to compete at a high level here this summer when they were forced into action. I kind of had said for a while that I really like this freshman class. It wasn't necessarily recognized as a highly touted or highly rated group, but they were all good takes. When it kind of went all the way across the board, they were all good takes. They all fit in our system. They all look like they can learn the system and be very productive players. So I told the team a day or 2 ago that, in all reality, the concept of redshirting is a concept that really isn't addressed until later in the season. There's somewhat of a preconception that the coach makes these decisions. I'm going to redshirt these 12 guys. I'm going to play these 12 guys. Now, there may be an intent to maybe do that, but in reality, it's the player's responsibility to get himself and have himself ready to play. And then my objective each and every week is to field the best, most complete team I can field to give us the best chance to win. All right, so if we've got to play some of our young kids, to do that, then we're going to play some of our young kids to do that. To your point, they had some opportunity this summer to prepare themselves to be in the heat of the battle.
Coach, with two new coordinators coming in, did you find that having a more experienced group helped make the implementation of everything a little bit easier?
Yeah, I think no doubt. I could not, say enough positive things about both John Garrett and Chris Kosh. I mean, they are extraordinary people. They're outstanding men and role models, and their resumes, the volume of experience really does speak for itself. So it works both ways, though. You have some veteran players that are able to adjust more quickly than a younger group would. Offensively, it really starts with your quarterback, his ability to embrace the offense and learn and take the leadership role. And then on the other side of the coin, though, the experience of the coordinators allows them a little better balance and understanding the process of putting it all in. And, Chris and John didn't or haven't panicked when things maybe didn't go quite right. And they've got enough background and understanding of the process. And you guys hear me talk about the process all the time. So I'm a firm believer in the process, and we buy into the process. John and Chris buy in. And then what I've been able to do, I don't want to say massage, but I'm interjecting in the moments that I really feel highly motivated to interject. I certainly spend more time with our defense. That's been kind of something we've talked about for quite some time. But there is a reality that I want both Chris and John to have the opportunity to have their personalities come out, allow them to take leadership roles within their groups. And if at every moment I'm kind of jumping in and taking control, then really I'm not giving them the opportunity to do that. So I've been real mindful of that through the spring and into the summer to be very educated in the moments that I try to interject or take control or move them away from a direction that they might be going. So I feel like we're in a good spot. And like I said, we've had certainly our growing pains in the spring, and we've had some tough days here in the summer. But when we've looked good out there, I've thought we've looked really good. And the physicality's been good. The tempo's been good. And on those days, I really start thinking it looks like championship football. Those days weren't as frequent that you'd want them to be. But again, I mean, human nature sometimes does win. Especially, practice 12 in the middle on a Wednesday morning in the middle of camp.
How happy are you with the running game situation?
Well, I'm more positive. Happy is not a good word for me right now. We've yet to rush for a yard, so I'm more pleased with the progress. I talked to Kyle yesterday, probably walking down the hall. I grabbed him for a couple minutes, and on our last kind of controlled scrimmage of the camp, we had some runs that looked pretty solid. The point of attack was blocked well. We had good physicality. The backs they got their footwork down. I think they're seeing things better. They're making their cuts better. Every play has a kind of a flow to it, a flow and a fit. And sometimes as a young runner, you don't necessarily have an appreciation for that flow of the play. So you're quick to abort and make a decision, make a premature cut or a premature bounce to the outside. And, Gordon was doing that early in camp, be quite frank. And as we went through camp, he was just a little more patient in running the ball. And we got a big physical offensive line. Well, I love the line play. I've always really been a believer in winning games in the trenches, and you win at the line of scrimmage. And I could not be more pleased with the progress of the offensive line and the physicality. Thomas Evans has been a great leader for us in there. Nick Virgos has been a great leader for us in there. Obviously got some other guys that are doing well. So that combination of physicality and experience in the O-line with the ability to run the ball, with some power and some authority and with some consistency, almost got up and started to dance to that right there. Was, I think, really gives us a chance to implement a down-the-field passing game. And, one of the things we did well this summer was pretty consistent was our down the field pass game and protection of it and completion down the field. So you got to get the run game going to be able to do that.
Dan, you guys have had some success in these games, and you're usually right in them till the end. How much do you find that having this kind of start to the season, this kind of challenge right in front of you week one kind of amps up the focus and maybe the summertime effort and all that kind of stuff? Because, a lot of people talk about guys at this level wanting to prove they can play against guys at that.
There are so many elements that go into that that it's really difficult to get your arms around it and to communicate it in a real clear manner. I actually addressed it to my team, I think yesterday. It could have been the day before. But these are hard games to play. They're harder games to win. And you don't want to go into games like this with the thought that, well, hopefully we can play well. I've never went into a game that I didn't feel like we would win. So there's a lot that goes into the preparation when you're playing an opponent like this to get your team to actually believe, hey, we're going up there to win the game. You exhaust a lot of physical and mental energy and emotion. I'm a believer in 100%. There is no 110%. We hear people say, give 110%. That I don't understand what that is. Okay, there's 100%. That's all you got. Okay, and the hope is that you're ready to give all that you got. It'll take all that you got. I think one of the things that's very real for those of us that are in these games and in these situations, the following week sometimes we've been kind of in a position where we're back on the road. And I think one of the worst formulas for FCS football programs is to play BCS on the road in front of 60,000 people in that type of an expectation, venue, and environment. Then the next week you go on the road again to play an opponent that everyone thinks you're going to beat in some environment that doesn't even resemble the environment that you just left. And you're actually presenting to that next team the same element of motivation that the previous team presented to you. So you go on the road, you're playing a game, and they're saying, oh my gosh, we got a chance to beat Richmond at home, and we're going to catch them after UVA. And so we're home the following week. That's a big thing for me. Okay, and I told our team that the other day. I don't know if they really got that or not when I said it to them, but it's a big thing for me. It's the reality that let it all hang out, put it all on the line. So at minimum, you have to do that to win. Okay, so I've really been communicating about the necessity to prepare yourself physically, mentally, emotionally to be able to play with the passion, play with the energy, play with the emotion, the enthusiasm, and then to be willing to do it for 60 minutes. They're going to run a fast pace. It's going to be hot. So all these things factor in. So again, it's a very broad discussion. There's some moments where I'm not sure that these games will be in existence a whole lot longer. There are some people on both sides of that argument. There's probably a reality that if the FCS school wasn't getting a paycheck, that these games wouldn't be played. So all those things are to be played out in the future. But for our immediate focus, got to have the mindset that we expect to win and put in the preparation and the energy and the time commitment that it takes to be able to give 100%.
Most coaches can't get enough practice time. How remarkable is it for you to give up 2 practices? And does that say more about your cognizance of the weather and what a brutal summer it's been, or just kind of pleasure with where your team is?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of us that are going through some psychological reassessments of how we're going to continue to conduct our camps, our weekly practices. There is a reality that the pendulum is swinging away from the old school. You know, we all that are in my age, we had 15 consecutive two-a-days. You never batted an eye. I went to Wake Forest University. I mean, it was hot and humid, and we had a two-a-day every day, and you really just kind of went through it and dealt with it. But times have changed. The NFL was always on the forefront of our change. The NFL has restructured their camps. You know, the NFL has really reassessed player safety. And I think we're all willing to take a step back and take a harder look at what do you really have to get done and what's the best methodology to get it done. Those of you that followed our program last year, late in the season, I changed my practice mode methodology, and I backed off our guys, and our guys laid it on the line Saturday afternoon, and there was some value in that. I think the issue is the management of it, and then trying to be able to assess it appropriately, you know, as you're going through it. And I think that's kind of what happened here a little bit this summer. I had another analogy I used here just recently to a group of folks, but you go through spring football. You go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for 5 weeks, and you play a game. Then all of a sudden you go to summer camp and you practice, 16 days in a row? I mean, it really doesn't make any sense when you look at it from that perspective. You know, where are those breaks? Where are those days off? Where are those moments where the student athlete can really rest and recover? Now, again, it's not like we're going to swimming, we're going to hit golf balls, you know, but you're walking through indoors, you're meeting in air-conditioned rooms, you're training in the weight room, but there's a little better rhythm and flow. I think when you do break your camp up like we did this year, and I would really believe that this is more of a trend for me than a one-time decision. And I'm hearing a lot of the same from my peers as I talk to a lot of my peers across the country about shortening the practices, heat, consecutive days, and then offering kind of natural breaks in the schedule. At the end of the day, it's my responsibility to have them ready to play in the opener. And whether you use 15 of the 29 or 29 of the 29, it's still, you know, my responsibility to have them ready to go. Part of that is health, though. And I know this for a fact. We got no chance if we're not healthy. We got no chance of going up to Charlottesville and playing well enough to win if I'm playing my second team, you know, or elements of my second team. I know that for a fact.
Have you and Rocco crossed paths in your career?
Yeah, just a little bit. When I was at UVA, we did a staff exchange with BYU. 1 year, BYU came to UVA, and I do think the next year the UVA staff went to BYU. I was not there the next year. I believe it was the year I went to Liberty. But Bronco did not come that year. That's my recollection. But we met a number of their assistant coaches, and you know, they had been in the 3-4 for a long time. We were in the 3-4 up at UVA, so we were that was kind of the purpose of their visit, you know, to have those kinds of 3-4 discussions. And then just recently here, I was appointed to the AFCA, the American Football Coaches Association's Board of Trustees. And Bronco has been on the board for a few years, I'm aware of. So this year at the convention, I think we were in San Antonio, but we had some board meetings and I had an opportunity to spend some time with them there. And then this summer, the committee met out in Phoenix and had a chance to spend some time with them there. And, you know, when you read his bio and you recognize his successes, I mean, it's extraordinary. You know, when you're winning 70% of your games in Division I football, I mean, that's extraordinary. And he didn't really do it at like Alabama or at like Ohio State. Not that it's easy there, but there might be an expectation that you should win 70% of your day. When you do it at BYU, especially when they had been a little bit up and down, you know, there was a reality that he really built that thing. And then the thing that I always admire the most are those guys that can sustain success. And I think in my profession, quite often a guy, kind of, sparks, has a flash one year and he becomes really hot and whatever. But to me, it's the ability to sustain success. It's the volume of the resume. And he certainly has established himself as an extraordinary and very successful coach. And he's an even better person. He's got great morals and great character. And he's another one of those guys, like all those guys on this board of trustees, that are in it for the right reasons, to better the game and to help the student athlete. And I do respect that about Coach and his commitment to the game.
Coach, what challenges come from playing a team with a new coach that you haven't seen before up close? Or, does it involve throwing BYU film in and getting an idea of his style, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. And again, there's a lot of decisions that you make, and you're only going to be right to a certain percentage. You're not going to be 100% right on that and 100% right on this. But we have made a decision to study BYU football. A lot of our summer propaganda programs and information and scouting report information still say BYU on them, because that's kind of who we were studying. I think from a system standpoint and a structure standpoint, Coach will bring his successful system to UVA. So we certainly have an expectation that it's going to look a lot more like BYU than UVA has looked. With the success that he's had and with the core coaches that he brought with him, okay, it just makes too much sense. They have all this teaching tape that they immediately can start teaching the UVA players from, and they can teach off of it and educate. So I think we've made some good decisions in that area. Now, you can't neglect personnel. So we've put together some touch tapes of their key players, receivers, running backs, a few things with some of their pass rushers and DBs, just so our players can be aware of who they're going against. But all the system decisions and all the game planning is really being done more off of BYU. Now, Coach closed his practices up there. I don't know if it's been for a long period of time or here most recently. So they're obviously, doing some things that are consistent to who he is and what he wants to do that maybe the fan base really isn't quite in tune with because of the fact they haven't seen it and it's not going to look like it did a year ago. So we're making calculated decisions, moving forward. The hope is got some really good seniors, some good leaders. We've been in the heat of battle. We're battle tested. When the going gets tough, we're going to have to respond, and we're going to have to make some adjustments along the way. They will have to do the same thing as they're dealing with the team that they've seen on film, but a team that does have some new coordinators and will offer a slightly different presentation.
To piggyback on Mark's question about Benkert, their starting quarterback, how do you prepare for him when he hasn't played in, I think, a couple of years?
Yeah. It's a little more tough, a little more difficult. You read what you read, and then you read between the lines, and so we've read everything we can get our hands on. And then, what's this mean? What's he really saying? And we feel like we got a decent understanding of what they're wanting to do and why maybe he's the best decision to do what they want to do. It leads me to think even that much more that they want to be in this BYU offense. They want to be able to throw the ball down the field, and they want to play with tempo. Coach Kosh had some experience back when he was at South Florida recruiting the transfer from ECU out of high school. So there's some knowledge there. But there's nothing of substance. There really isn't a whole lot of substance, in terms of he's big, he's athletic, he's strong-armed. Every time I read something that he says, that sounds like a bright, sharp young man, and I'm sure he'll be very poised to take charge and take the role. And obviously, Coach Mendenhall, was thorough in his evaluation. He took his time. He had a timeline. He had a checklist of things he wanted to do, and now he's made a decision, and they're going to move forward. We got our hands full, I think, in dissecting some of those things. I think, what we have on our side is some continuity and some experience in being in games together and a little more understanding maybe of our players knowing our system. And hopefully we can respond quickly enough in those moments to make plays, to get off the field and to get the ball back for our offense.
Ricky Seeger's kick Saturday?
Will he?
Yes, sir.
Future tense.
Yes, sir.
He has yet to kick.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I can't say yes or no. I can say he has yet to kick. I have yet to see him kick a football.
Would it preclude him from kicking Saturday?
Not necessarily. I don't think it would preclude him from being an option to kick.
Christian Trout would kick otherwise.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, Griff's had a good camp.
You mentioned laying everything out on the line in these type of games. Are these type of games a situation where you would do things or call certain plays that you normally would not call in a conference game because it's, a one-time situation per year?
In the past, it hasn't really played out that way for me. I do recognize the value in that. I try to go over almost any and every situation that can arise in a game during the course of the week, but I do that every week. And even out here the other day, I was going through some sequences that could occur in the game, and would I do this? Would I consider doing that? I think last year for me was probably a year where I was the least conventional in my 10 years as a head coach. I had been very, I don't want to use the word conservative, but I've been very by the book and conventional in most of my thinking. It's paid dividends. We've won and have had success. Last year I broke that mold a little bit in terms of situations in the game, fourth down situations, special teams situations. But I don't necessarily think that you win a game like this by tricking anybody. You've got to be able to sustain your offensive and defensive rhythm and success to be in the game. And then maybe to your point, then there's maybe an opportunity for one situation to offer the momentum to win or change the game. But you don't start with that mindset. And so I think to that point, I'm going to prepare my football team for this game like I prepare them for every game. And we're going to try to do our core stuff to the best of our ability. And if situations arise, we'll be prepared to make decisions in those moments.